joining us for our webinar on higher education. My name is Selena Llamas, and I am the Southern Arizona Community Engagement Manager for Expect More Arizona. Expect More Arizona is a statewide nonpartisan education advocacy organization. We are a nonprofit 501c3 that helps people understand what's happening in all levels of education, from early learning, K-12, and higher education, and how folks out there, whether you're a parent or a student, how they can become education advocates in their own community. This segment of the webinar series, or Vote for Education, is near and dear to my heart because I am the first generation college student, and I personally understand the importance and significance of higher education. Sorry. The man in the first slide the man on the first slide is actually a friend of mine from high school. I graduated with him in 1999, but after graduation, he decided 10 years after high school to go to college so he can support the work that he's doing at the Pascua-Yaqui tribe in a administrative capacity. The young lady in the photo there is his daughter. And his daughter graduated about 2 years ago from a local high school here in Tucson. And she decided to follow in her dad's footsteps and enroll as a U of A student. This is a great example of passing the education baton to the next generation. This is ultimately the goal for many parents. Tonight, you'll be hearing from our excellent panelists, all of which have extensive expertise in access and retention in post-secondary education. I'd like to take a minute now to briefly introduce our first presenter. First is Rachel Yanoff. Rachel joined Achieve 60 AZ in 2018 as the first executive director for the organization. She started off her career in education as a Teach for American Corps member, and later founded and led Phoenix Collegiate Academy, a high-performing charter school in South Phoenix. This evening, Rachel will open up the conversation about higher education with her presentation on the state of attainment in Arizona. Achieve 60 recently produced a report, and she will share some of those updates with us tonight.
Wonderful. Thanks, Selena. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here. And hopefully we will have very few interruptions from tiny people in my house. And if we don't, just pretend like it's part of the show. So if we could go on to the next slide. Thanks so much. So our work is organized around this giant goal, which is that we want to see 60% of the adults in Arizona in the year 2030 with attainment, which we define as certificates, licenses, and degrees. So in order for you to frame in your head, think of anyone you know who right now in your life is anywhere between 15 to 54. That's who we're targeting. And think of anyone you know in your life, 15 to 54, who does not yet have a degree, 2, 4, or more year, a license in a professional field, or a certificate in a post-secondary training field. That is who we're targeting, and that's who we're thinking about. And again, it's by the year 2030, which every time I give this presentation gets a little bit closer. So we've got 10 years to do that work. Next slide. We've done some great work, though, and I want to acknowledge the fact that since we've been tracking and really identifying that this is a goal for our state, we are making progress. So you can see that blue line, which shows that over the last 8 years or so that we've been tracking this, we're seeing positive momentum. We're at 46%. That's amazing, but that red line represents the growth that needs to be made in these next 10 years. And that slope is steep. That means there is some work to be done. Sometimes, however, if you're like me, 14 percentage points, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Percentage points is not how I live my life. I live my life thinking about every single learner that I get to work with or every single person that I get to interact with. So if you click one more time, what this slope represents is about 1 million more learners. And I would tell you that pre-pandemic, we would have probably been able to adjust this number. But given the fact that we know COVID-19 has had a huge impact on the learners that we are specifically targeting, we are sure that there is probably still a lot of validity in that 1 million person number. So again, if you can think of a person in that age range of 15 to 54, who you know right now that has not completed a post-secondary credential, either because they're 15 and they shouldn't have yet, so that's okay, or they're in that adult stage where maybe they never thought they needed it, or now they have found that there's a passion for it, that's who we're targeting. Click again. Oops, that got a little bit funny, but that says pillars of attainment. And I just want to point out, we don't think attainment sits by itself. That's why we are so excited always to partner with all parts of the educational spectrum and the workforce side, because this work actually exists for all of us. So we would say that attainment, which often sounds like it's just talking about adults, is actually, it starts with our babies, right? We have to have early childhood through high school being wildly effective, being well supported, being quality for all, because it would be tragic to hit 60% attainment in 2030 and then see ourselves in 2031 tank because we didn't take care of all the pipeline of young people coming up. So similarly, we also say post-secondary access to success is a critical pillar of this work. Not only do our students need to know about post-secondary options, but they need to be able to access the tools to be successful in, including financial tools, including advising and mentoring, but also they need to be completing their programs, be it a credential program, a certificate program, or a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or a licensure program. And then pillar 3 is really about workforce. You're not off the hook if you're an employer. If you're saying, oh, I don't have any kids, I don't actually do much with young people, that's okay, because you're still in the game. Because if you work in an industry, you work with people who probably have not yet reached their full attainment levels. So how do we bring attainment to the workforce as far as bringing jobs that require that high level of attainment so people have a reason to pursue it? And also, how do we ensure that we are building up our workforce and our employees to be successful in post-secondary? And then the last one is sort of our potpourri category, right? Like the systems and the structures. I know, life is real, right? I got kids. So the systems and the structures around attainment. We know that there are a lot of ways that we are tracking data that we need to update and develop better. We know that there are ways of how we talk about our students and our learners to make sure we are finding and then making those systems easy enough for the learner to use. So that's our big sort of catch-all category. But as you're looking at this, we hope you find yourself in this work because everyone has a role to play in attainment. Next button. All right, so our key areas of focus that we've really drawn a line in the sand and said, we can't just say attainment for all. Not that it isn't important and we care about everyone in Arizona, so please know that we are passionate about all of our Arizona residents. But if you look at this first graph, you'll see our attainment levels in Arizona are unequal. Our students of color from our Hispanic Latinx, from our Black African American, and from our Native communities, they're attaining at lower levels than our white population and our Asian population. And so what is it that we are going to do to call that question? So at Achieve 60 Arizona over the last year, we were able to convene multiple stakeholder groups, and we led 3 groups well, we didn't lead, we funded, and then had members from the communities themselves who led this work around setting not only attainment goals for their groups, and all 3 of our groups, Black, African American, Hispanic, Latinx, and tribal communities, all 3 groups set goals of 60% by 2030, which is ambitious. You certainly can see that that's a huge jump, but the acknowledgement that they are important, that they matter, and that they are in this goal is critical. And then we have asked them to set strategies. What are the things that have to happen in order to actually make that real? And we're dialing into that work even further in 2021 to bring those groups together to really set action plans and owners of that work. But first step is just we have to know it. We have to realize that the system has not worked equally for everyone. And then secondarily, this other sort of bright line, which is not mutually exclusive, but again, in order to make people's heads not blow up, we said we got to think specifically about the adult learner and what the adult learner needs and what will make them successful. So I told you there's 1 million more people we need to get to post-secondary status. If you look at these numbers, 600,000 Arizonans right now don't even have a high school diploma, adults. That means that that is a huge population who are needing that learning, that opportunity to get their high school diploma, but also credentials and degrees to move themselves from probably what is a minimum wage job. Then we also have 1.2 million Arizonans who have started a post-secondary program but haven't completed. And again, I am not casting aspersions as to why. We know that there are childcare issues, there are family concerns, there are transportation issues, there's financial concerns, the money ran out, or there's also just a lack of knowing and having a good plan or a pathway to know how to get through that program. And then there's the best case scenario where someone started working along the way and they found that they didn't feel like the program they were pursuing was meeting their need. And so they're fine, they think, but what if they get outsourced? Or what if that job is suddenly no longer a job for them? How do they reskill and retrain? And you have great people on this panel to talk more about that. But we really want to focus on the fact that our systems and our structures and the way that we are making ourselves available to adult learners is critical, because we will not reach 60% without an intense focus on adult learners. Next slide. I just really quickly have to leave with the plug of what Achieve 60 is and is not, because you should probably know. So I told you there's this big giant goal, and I've actually been talking all about that goal. That goal is yours, that goal is mine, that goal is the governor's, that goal is the Board of Regents, that goal is the community college leaders, that goal belongs to every single student and learner in Arizona. That goal is not any one person's and every person's. And I think it's really great to see that that has been embraced so widely across Arizona. But the organization, which is also named Achieve 60, is what I get to run, and I'm a little more protective of that. You can definitely be our partner in that, but I still get to run it. And in our organization, we hold a couple of things really near and dear to our hearts. First of all, our vision. Click, thanks. Our vision is not that in 2030, on December 31st, every person in Arizona walks outside and waves a piece of paper that shows that they have a credential, a license, or a degree. While that would be a very cool picture from space, that's not actually what matters the most. What matters the most is that that education is the proxy for this thriving, diverse, skilled Arizona. And you know, you saw one of my kids march in here. That's the Arizona I want for my babies. That's the Arizona that I know we can be. And that thriving Arizona only happens when 60% happens for everyone. So our communities of color that are furthest from attainment and our adult learners, that has to be equally accessible for them. Next click. We also know that this work will not happen with Achieve 60, the organization alone, because we're a whopping 2 people. So we know that the Alliance, and anyone on this call, you are welcome to become an Alliance partner. The Alliance is where the work is going to happen. It's going to happen through smart people like the people on this panel who are thinking about admissions and opportunities through post-secondary institutions, who are thinking about financial aid systems and who's in and who's not, who are thinking about scholarships and our tribal communities, in Luann's case, of how do we make sure that our students in our furthest away from attainment communities are aware of the opportunities and how to get there, and building that college going culture. So again, all the work is being done by everybody else. We're just in this wonderful spot to be able to say, be our partner in that, and how can we help lift you up? And last thing, here's what we do, if you click one more time, at Achieve 60. We educate and empower. So we hope that what you learned a little bit today sort of spikes your interest and you want to go check out our website, because there's some good stuff to download there. We inform and report. Also on that website is our report that from last year and this year, calling the question of here's what attainment needs to happen and to make this 60% goal real. We need to continue to increase public support. Post-secondary education should not just be for the elite. I don't think that will ever be a model that will be sustainable, nor is it the right thing in a society as diverse and as wonderful as Arizona. But we also need to make sure that all pathways to a post-secondary education are understood and accessible. And then lastly, there's so much in Arizona that's working. And hopefully the panel that you're going to hear about today is going to talk to you about what is working and talk to you about why it's working and who it's working for, because it is an amazing ecosystem in education we have here. And our job, we hope, is to lift that up and tell that story. So one more click. If you want to find us again, there's myself and my colleague, Brianne. We are the 2 full-paid staff at Achieve 60 Arizona. Our report is also there. There's a link to it, but you can just go to our website and download it at your leisure whenever you want to. It is basically outlining much more of this, but I wanted to give you a high level of what it would take.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if we lost Rachel for a second or it was just my computer. So I apologize if I wasn't immediately after she stopped. Anywho, so thank you again, Rachel, for sharing such great information about Achieve 60. It was a pleasure to it's a pleasure to always work with you and be a part of the attainment work that you do across the state. I am now joined by 3 expert panelists that I would like to introduce to the audience. First we have Dr. Casey Oriquez. She is the University of Arizona Vice President for Enrollment in Management and Dean of Undergraduate Admissions. She serves as the university's chief enrollment strategist and oversees the offices of admissions, recruitment, enrollment marketing, early outreach and new student orientation, scholarships and financial aid, also parent-family programs, student engagement, and career development. Wow, I don't know when she sleeps, if she has to do all that. The next one is Ronnie Jenkins. Ronnie Jenkins is currently the Vice President of Community Relations and Student Development for Yavapai College. He relocated to Yavapai County from Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, where he was the Vice President for University Relations for Lock Haven University. Mr. Jenkins has over 25 years of experience developing and implementing effective public relations, communications, marketing, economic development, and fund development strategies. Then we have, last but not least, is Dr. Luann Leonard. She is currently the Executive Director of the Hopi Education Endowment Fund, a nonprofit of the Hopi tribe. Under her leadership, the award-winning fund has grown in value from 10 million to 28 million. Luann was appointed to serve an 8-year term on the governing board for Arizona's public universities, and she continues to be the first and only Native American to serve on a board. So I just wanted to give a quick announcement. If at any time the audience has questions for the panelists, as the program moves on, please send them to us in the comments below, and we will do our best to weave them into the program. So if I can have all the panelists. Okay, great. I can see Casey and Rodney and Luann. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to have the first question that I have is addressed to all of you. I would like to hear from each of you. What are some of the unique education challenges that your community is facing right now to earn a degree? Casey, I'll let you respond first.
Thank you, Selena, and thanks so much for having me here today. I am honored to be part of the panel that's with us today, so thank you. Well, definitely in terms of unique challenges, not so unique is that access to higher education is still critically important. And during this time, it's even more important. And we're really trying to figure out how we can better serve our students. So not only are they having access to higher education, but also success, of course. There's some new stressors that our students are feeling related to feeling of isolation because of the quarantine kinds of things, which also leads to some mental health challenges. And of course, finances are really a tough thing for many of our families right now. And so we're seeing that many of our students, especially some of our most vulnerable students, are having to make decisions about whether to work and help support family members or to stay in school or maybe take fewer units and or fewer courses. And all that leads to more time toward degree. So that can be a daunting process. And I know that some of us will talk more about this, but internet issues continue to be a hardship. Remote learning is very different. And so even for our students in Tucson, sometimes not being able to access the internet or have that very strong connection to be able to do those connections with their classmates is important. And that online learning is not for everyone. Some folks really want to and need to have that interaction with people. And so learning how to adapt to that, as in addition to finding a new place to study in a quiet location to be able to do that, that can be really challenging for folks and makes the experience very different from what a lot of our students came to the university to have. And so trying to balance all of those things makes a difference for the student. And that also means that some of them are looking to potentially want to take a time out from their education. And so we know that when students stop out, it's really hard to get back into it. And so we're having a lot of those conversations with students to help and really want to keep them engaged and offer different modalities with online or flex in person, live online, hybrid, those kinds of things to make sure that we can help keep our students with us in higher education across the state so that they can earn their degree.
Thank you, Casey. Ronnie or Luann, if you want to jump in and answer the same question, if you want me to repeat it, I am more than happy to.
Well, I can jump in next if Luann's okay with that. I want to really piggyback on where Casey kind of ended. First of all, thank you for allowing me and Yavapai College to be a part of the panel. And also, I also want to go back and thank Rachel. Rachel's a great partner at Arizona 60, and we work daily to help her reach her goal as we're reaching ours. And so we are all in this together. And so I think, from a unique perspective, what we call the stop out students, and these again are students that began their degree or certificate, but for a myriad of reasons couldn't finish. We see that as an extremely important area for the community college. And Rachel talked about almost 1.2 million people in the state of Arizona fitting into this category. That's why we have launched a major campaign to convince students that coming back is in their interest and to be able to pursue a degree or certificate is truly a pathway to a better quality of life and standard of living. And so it's extremely important initiative for us, and we'll do what we can to really reach out to almost 400,000 people in Yavapai County alone who fit into that category. The other thing, COVID has forced our industry to really rethink our business operations. For us, we want to reopen fully. But one of the things affecting our decision to come back fully is our liability insurance. And we learned right after the coronavirus kind of shut us down that our trust, which many of our community colleges and our K-12s are part of the same trust. Our trust would not cover any of lawsuits that we would have for anyone who claimed that they contracted the disease on our campuses. It is a tough battle to win the case, but it's the legal cost of fighting the case or cases that have really forced us to go only about 15% online. We were 70% face-to-face, 30% online before coronavirus. Now we are almost 85% online. We hope to go back to face-to-face because it has created a real quandary for both our faculty and our students. But, knowing that when we do, we're never going to be the same again. So we as community college and four-year institutions, we in grade school, K-12, we have to learn a new business model. How do we move forward from what this virus has taught us?
Thank you, Rodney. Let's see. There you go.
Yeah. You can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you. Our internet is being really horrible today. My name is Samantha. I'm here to be here. Casey, I haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. And to meet Rodney and Selena. I'm coming to you from the Hopi reservation in northern Arizona. We're located about 70 miles north of Winslow, Arizona, and our unique challenges are more basic mental challenges you need to survive that affect education. You can imagine living on a reservation where unemployment is 60% on the reservation. There are maybe close to 1/3 of people without electricity or without water. And internet access is probably one of the least on the list on the priority of needs. But our students in March when the pandemic hit, we were forced to return back home and to the reservation with these challenges that lay before them. Since then, I've heard stories about students having to drive 20 miles to a spot on the reservation on a hill where you can get service. Can you hear me?
Actually, Luann, we're going to have to. So go ahead and disconnect and then call in with the phone because you're very muffled. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we're gonna let her go ahead and do that, and then give me a moment here. Okay, so I'm just gonna direct the next question to Rodney. So Rodney, you have a unique perspective of working on Capitol Hill. How do you see policy decisions that are developed at the federal level impact community college in your state?
Well, the first thing we have been working very hard on is to convince Congress to reauthorize the Higher Education Act. Historically, this bill has been nonpartisan and not that much of an opposition for either party. It's been lingering for about 3.5 years now. It hasn't moved for a number of reasons. It's been made very political, and we need to somehow get away from the political partisanness and back to the importance of what this bill has done for us historically. But we've been pushing a couple of major pieces of the Higher Ed Reauthorization Act. We want the act to provide short-term Pell Grants for those who are seeking training programs. We need people to quickly be able to get a certificate and get to work. In addition, increase the grant maximum award for Pell Grant to appropriately reflect the cost of education. That includes books, room and board, and other costs associated with education. Pell Grant awards don't increase at the same level as the cost to attend college. We need Congress to pass the Second Chance Grant, Pell Grant. And this is for folks who are incarcerated. Give them an opportunity to attend college and provide for their families. If we don't allow them that opportunity, the taxpayer will continue to have to foot that bill. We need Congress to pass or create an America's Promise program. For community college, essentially making community college education free. Many states currently have a state program already. Arizona does not. We have been lobbying our state folks to pass a program for both community colleges, and the 4 years have a bill as well, kind of lingering in the State House. It's important that we make college affordable for everyone, and these are simple ways that we can get through to do that. The other piece, invest more in workforce programs to help help people move into training program and receive an associate degree. We currently have about 16,000 available jobs in our county alone. Businesses need a ready workforce. We need resources to help prepare people for the workforce. Within the first 3 months of COVID, over 40 million people filed for unemployment. There were jobs losses that these jobs will never come back. So, we're proud at Yavapai College to be part of a national reskilling program. And it's an initiative sponsored by the National Governors Association and the American Association of Community Colleges, where we will participate in developing programs to retrain and prepare people for artificially intelligent positions. These are jobs for the future. We will need federal funding to help us with this endeavor. And I'll end with this on this question. We need Congress to assist students that were impacted by the rescission of DACA. Dreamers deserve a pathway to permanent legal status and citizenship. They are, in every sense of the word, an American. And community college educate thousands of dreamers every year, and they help impact our local communities significantly.
Thank you, Rodney. I really, really appreciate that. That was a great response in every way that I can think of. I wanted to see, Luann, are you connected by phone now? Try unmuting yourself if you can hear me. Okay, I'm going to give her a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and move on and ask Casey a question directly. So Casey, you deal with admissions, right? What do you see is the long-term impact of a pandemic on ensuring more students of color are enrolling and persisting in higher education?
Sure. Thank you, Selena. And thank you, Rodney, for your previous answer. I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say, and definitely agree with you and had some of those thoughts myself related to the Higher Ed Reauthorization Act and many other things. So thank you. But yes, well, I think one of the most important things is, yes, I do work in admissions, but it's so much more than admissions, and keeping that in mind, that it's really about student success and completion. And so that admissions point, of course, is really important in that access piece, but making sure that we have the proper funding to help students to be able to progress is critical. And whether that be through state-funded financial aid programs or federal programs, changing up the Pell program, as Rodney mentioned, all those things are so important to getting toward degree attainment. I mean, I was really excited for this year to get kicked off, which seems odd, but we had a very great class that came in, and it was our most ethnically diverse class that we've ever had at the University of Arizona for our first year students. And we also had one of our highest first to second year retention rates, and then also with our students of color were retained at very high rates. And so while that's all really a great thing, being able to make sure that we are continuing to serve them and help them is going to be critical as we moved into or continue in the virtual world, definitely. But I think one of the things that we're definitely seeing is that even in my own home, watching my own student access education and really try to continue to learn and understand everything that's going on with these new topics, and whether it be AP or an advanced class or a general class, really trying to grasp those concepts from an online format, which again, I mentioned earlier, not everyone thrives in a remote format, and sometimes that's really difficult to do. So I think that there's going to be some struggles that our students have as they're coming out of all of this and trying to then acclimate into a different environment with the education and the learning that they've had. And this is not due to anything that teachers aren't doing. I mean, teachers are working so hard and trying so hard to be able to pass along this knowledge, but we know that some students are not able to can use their computer all day. They might need to pass that on to a sibling to use for some of their coursework, or their Wi-Fi may not work for the full day or maybe spotty. So there's going to be a lot of those kinds of things that I think are going to catch up to us and really be affecting. And I think the other thing is related to just student social development and not being in the classroom or with their students in the same way that they had been before, or their friends, or and our teammates, whatever it might be. And all of that is so important as students grow and try to prepare to go to college or go to a trade school or go to military, any of those things. I think that we're going to see some long-term effects of that, and really have to do a lot to make sure that we're serving the students that are coming up after going through such a traumatic and different time in our world.
Thank you, Casey. Okay, Luann, can you hear me? Luann? I can see her, but I don't know if she can hear me. Okay, so the next, I'm just going to kind of take turns here. So Rodney, okay, I think Luann is dialing back in. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to Rodney. Let's see here. There are several seats on community college boards up for election this year. Can you talk a little bit about some of the impacts that local community college governing boards have on the direction of the institution?
Sure. First, we actually had 2 of our 5 seats up for election this year, and we're looking forward to working with our 2 new district governing board members. Our district governing board is responsible for governing on behalf of our taxpayers. They fulfill this accountability by developing policies that govern the operations of the institution, but they delegate that responsibility to the president of the college through a structured monitoring process. It's extremely important, it's vital that the boards do not participate in day-to-day operations. And when there are situations that happen, it jeopardizes the college's accreditation process. And there are institutions around the country who have been put on probation or lost their accreditations because of board infighting. So we respect the fact that our boards respect that process, and it's important that they understand when they are elected, that they understand what their roles are.
Thank you. It's very, very important that we all know if our local community college, if there are seats that we need to vote people in and the right people. So I hope everyone takes that seriously. Luann, can you hear us now? Okay, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. Okay, I can't hear you. I know.
Hello, I'm not muted.
Okay, I can hear you.
You can.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So the question for you, the next question for you is very fitting. So we know all of the things identified during this pandemic is the concept of digital divide. What would be needed for a community that is isolated, like the Hopi Nation, to ensure students can connect digitally to education in the future?
Okay. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
I am so sorry. Hi, everybody. This is a prime example of what occurs on a Native American reservation. We're located about 70 miles north of Winslow, Arizona. And if you can imagine, our internet is on like a fish line, barely there kind of thing. And then you add on all of our students trying to get online to school. This is what's happening. And so I can't even imagine how our students felt in March when they were trying to complete classes, but this was happening to them. But there's many things. The digital divide is great. I've been telling people it feels like a Band-Aid that's been put over us over the years, and COVID just tore off that Band-Aid and it exposed everything that we deal with on the reservations. We're dealing with people who have a 60% unemployment, no water, no electricity in some cases, and then students trying to finish class. So it has done a lot, and then add on that, all of the students now trying to use the system out here. It's put a tremendous strain on our systems, and but we're trying to cope with it the best we can, and we're hoping that people will understand what we're dealing with in events like this to be able to make things better for our students. I'm sure I went off the question. I'm just totally, I had things prepared, and when I was trying this now, I'm totally off. But what was your question? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Basically, the question, I think you answered it, is how can isolated communities like the Hopi Nation ensure students can connect digitally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the main thing is money to upgrade our systems to be able to handle all of this, because this is the wave of the future. Tribes got the CARES money, and a significant portion of the Hopi CARES money is going toward upgrading our system, but that will take time. And what's hard is students are in class right now, and we're doing what we can to help them connect. And I'll explain that later in one of the questions, what Hopi is trying to do and other tribes are.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question, since I was diverting some of the other ones to Ronnie and Casey. This one I am particularly concerned about. What can parents and voters do to make sure that students don't fall out of the pipeline their senior year, so they can persist and go on to higher education?
Oh, yeah. Well, number one, everybody can vote. Everybody should vote. They need to do their research on those candidates who are supporting our education issues. And remember that teachers, with some of the initiatives, a lot of funding goes to teachers, but we do need to also focus on guidance counselors. And if not counseling in person, ways that students can still be able to interact with counselors that will help them become enrolled and know what they need to do. And also, more importantly, apply for financial aid. We also need to make sure we are electing officials who, I think Rodney went into it very detailed about the Higher Education Act, how we're needing more money. That's more so than ever right now. So doing their homework and mainly getting out there and voting.
Absolutely.
I want to jump in on that,
Yeah.
Lena, if you don't mind, because I think it's important and that the community colleges have really stepped in to help our K-12 adjust during this period. And I know, Casey, down in your area, Pima, and your president has been very vocal about doing a lot of community support. We have to step in and help our K-12s in situations like this. We generally have more resources to better connect. We stepped in on several situations to help with establishing Zoom networks and things like that. But overall, in Yavapai County, what we are currently engaged in is a community effort to improve the connectivity infrastructure. It's a lot of money to connect a county this size. We're bigger than some states geographically, but in some of our rural areas, and two of our tribes, they are so remote, it's difficult for them to even receive a signal. So we are working on a federal grant and a task force to better connect our entire county. So very rural, and I guess, Casey, you would have some of the same issues down south.
Did you want to add anything, Casey?
No, I echo what Luann and Rodney have mentioned. I mean, those are key things that I have been thinking about as well, and definitely our communities are engaged with, whether the city or the county, and trying to expand that access and expand it into other locations as much as possible, whether that be through MiFis, if they'll even work in certain areas, or through other infrastructure.
Thank you.
The other thing, Selena, just interrupt you one more time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Supporting Proposition 208 is extremely important for K-12, and it will provide more money for the classroom. So we have to read the prop for ourselves and not listen to the pundits who get on screen and talk about all of the things that's wrong with the bill. The Proposition 208 essentially will tax the wealthiest Arizonans to help pay for new teachers, better pay, more classroom support. And if you make over $500,000 a year, it will be an increase to your income tax, not a business tax, income tax on people making more than $500,000 a year. And it's right time that the state who provides, we're I think 48th in the country or something like that for funding education. We got to do better than that. If we don't fund education, we will have to fund jails.
Yes. Thank you, Rodney.
If I could jump in just really quick. I totally agree with that statement. Thank you for sharing that in such a great way. Just wanted to share that the difficulties with the internet, what we found are even, because half of the Hopi people reside off reservation in the urban areas, and even they are having challenges. And what's happening is students had part-time jobs that helped them purchase the internet they needed in their homes to be able to connect to classes. When everything started closing down, including restaurants, movie theaters, where these kids had jobs, there went the resources. So we're finding that they're having challenges even in the urban areas, and also hearing that internet is slower in a lot of the urban areas. I don't know, personally if that's true, but so there's challenges all across.
Yeah.
But it's really hard out here on the reservation. Thank you.
So I have to ask this question because maybe there's people in the audience who are working in the education space just like us. So I have to ask this to Casey, because I know that Casey's husband is a teacher here in one of the high schools in Tucson. So I wanted to ask, your husband being a teacher, a high school teacher, and you working for one of the best universities in the state. With your unique perspectives, is there anything you both consider before you cast your vote for a candidate?
Sure, thank you. Definitely. I mean, we definitely do our research, as was mentioned. I think that is critically important to be able to really understand rather than just see what's being played out, on TV. But we really make it a point to make sure that we're looking at those individuals who support education. And, a lot of people say they support education, but what does that really mean? And being able to make sure that they support public education and they support teacher preparation. And as Luann mentioned, the high school counselors and staff that we need in the schools to be able to help fully support our students. We have one of the highest student to counselor ratios in the nation. And we have to do better if we're going to be able to help these students progress and move through. And so we really look into all of those kinds of things before. We also look at, their record on social justice issues and their interest in per pupil funding. And so we try to find out as much as we can before we cast a vote. Being a teacher and being dedicated for his last 25 years of his life has been in the classroom and making sure that he's supporting students. We want to make sure that anyone that we are putting our vote down for has the same values related to education.
Thank you. So our last question of the evening goes to all the panelists. With challenges, sometimes new opportunities arise. What kind of policies would be needed to ensure that all students in your regions can be successful?
I can start. Yeah. We have to develop and implement policies and programs to ensure all citizens who wish to improve their standard of living and quality of life has the opportunity to do so. So here at Yavapai College, 2 years ago, we created the Hispanic Student Achievement and Attainment Initiative. I know that's a mouthful. But in Yavapai County, 15% of our population are Latino. But here at the college, we only had about 7% of our total student population as Hispanic students. Today, because of this initiative, we're at 21% in just 2 years. Our goal is 25% by the end of next year. And so we believe that working with the community, listening to the community and involving the community and showing them how important it is to attain a degree or certificate, it improves their quality of life and standard of living. The other part too, as I mentioned earlier, that we have about 16,000 available jobs in Yavapai County. And the average age of Yavapai County resident is 52 years old. But the average, I know we're old, the average Latino is 28 years old. That's our workforce. That's who we need to be training and preparing to move our community into the future. And so it's important for the college to really invest in all of our community. And this is an initiative that has been paying off for both the Latino community and our economic workforce.
Thank you. Luann?
I would just like to briefly comment on the policies around financial aid. There's, talk about loan forgiveness programs that would help people start over. A lot of our people had enrolled in these technical vocational schools that closed down and took out loans, and now they're saddled with that, but they really do want to go on to get a college higher education, but because of the loans, they're unable to do so. Serious consideration needs to be given to that, as well as maintaining or, increasing the appropriation for the federal aid, because most of our students qualify for that. But you said a phrase, out of this challenges comes opportunities. And I encourage other tribes to do what Hopi did, my organization did, was we created an emergency fund for our students to purchase laptops, printers, internet access, things they need to be able to cope and be successful this semester. And so we were able to fund 61 students with this to help set them up for success, because a lot of them didn't have a laptop. They were doing all of their coursework on their cell phone, including writing papers. They couldn't print. They had to choose between doing their laundry or printing their papers. It was just unbelievable, but we worked to help them. So what's coming out are creating unique opportunities to help our students, and I hope others are doing the same for their communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would say for one of the opportunities that we found out of this was just some of our partnerships as the tri-universities. So U of A, ASU, and NAU partnering together to do virtual week of helping students understand the enrollment process and application process. And we saw over 10,000 students or not individual students, but 10,000 registrants for the different sessions that we offered. And so I think that was a great opportunity for us to come together and show the state and the students of our state what opportunities they had at any one of our 3 institutions, including how to be a successful transfer student, because we also believe in making sure that we can serve our students that are coming from a transfer institution, definitely. And I think in terms of policy, we've already talked about the Higher Ed Act and reauthorization, but I think as a part of that, for sure, a simplified FAFSA so that students and families are able to more easily get through that process and qualify for aid. And then of course, increase in Pell would be something else I really would advocate for as well as a part of new policy.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So our panelists have made some great points about the importance of voting. This year has presented a very unique issues that our country and our systems of education have never experienced before. The election is important for many, many reasons, and it is an opportunity to change things that need to be changed. So again, I thank you, Casey, Rodney, and Luann for participating this evening with us. So I'm just going to take another minute or so just to review some of the resources that Expect More Arizona offers. Let's see here. So Expect More Arizona has developed resources to make it easier for you to take action. If you navigate over to our Vote for Education website at expectmorearizona.org/vote, you'll find lots of helpful tools and a place where you can sign up to do things like register to vote and check your voter status. As you may have heard, Arizona has extended the deadline to register this year to October 15th, which again is tomorrow by 5 p.m. If you or someone you know is not registered yet, you have a little bit of time, but please make sure that you get your registration due by tomorrow by 5. Again, study up, learn how your vote makes a difference and who your candidates are. You'll find tools to help. Oops. You'll find tools to help you speak up so that you can contact your candidates and ask them their position on things that matter to you mostly, and finally to show up at the polls or mail in your ballot so that you don't miss out on your chance to vote. Again, thanks everyone, especially to our fantastic panelists for sharing their wisdom with us tonight, and thanks to all those watching and listening in for your participation in this evening's webinar. It has been recorded and will be available on our Facebook page for repeated viewing. If you have questions or feedback that you'd like to share, please feel free to reach out to me at selena@expectmorearizona.org. If you submitted a question during the the conversation. We will try to respond to those questions directly to you. Again, thank you for your time and attention. And I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.